Okay, so from now, we are going to start the finance session. We are not going to cover every session on finance, but just the first part of the session because of the agenda change. But basically, so my name is Gennai Kamata. I work for the UNEP Cool Coalition and also Global Alliance for Building and Construction. And in this session, we are going to explore the potential finance mechanism and the business models to promote sustainable cooling and also other environmental projects. And then, so just quickly about the background and also objective of this session is that inadequate finance is consistently ranked among the top barriers to scale up climate-friendly cooling, especially in low middle-income countries. And passive, super efficient and nature-based solutions incur incremental cost over conventional air conditioning systems. The reason are limited supply chains and higher cost of manufacturing or installing, and the needs of the highly skilled laborers in design and development. For example, in India, passively cooled buildings have from 3 to 50% higher capital cost than conventional buildings. And price-sensitive individual end users and consumers and resource-constrained national or subnational governments are frequently deterred from sustainable cooling because of this higher capital investment. The business case for climate-friendly cooling is also not established and disseminated as needed. Dedicated long-term financing will alleviate these roadblocks. But these actions face challenges from lack of awareness amongst policymakers and investors about sources of financing, appropriate cooling technologies, and their positive return on investment. Weak market demand for financing mechanism because demand-inducing national and subnational regulations, such as the minimum energy performance standards, are not introduced and enforced. And inadequate verification systems and indicators for investors to check performance, and institutional guidance missing to design loan products of finance mechanism. So with this in mind, the objective of the session is to examine the pathways for unlocking finance from conventional financing instruments and designing new self-sustaining instruments with public and private sectors. Experiences and learning of national and subnational partners, UN agencies and experts, and other state or non-state actors will be the focus of these interactions. So specifically, this session will address the potential domestic and international sources for unlocking finance for heat-resilient built environment. These could include global climate funds, market investors and mechanisms, domestic public sector instruments, business models, etc. And also, it will address national or subnational investment roadmaps to quantify financing needs, prioritize high-impact cooling policies and technologies, natural finance mechanisms, and track financing for cooling, guidance on investment assessment for the cooling sector. A collaboration of UNEP and the World Bank to support the implementation of the National Cooling Action Plans, and the Global Cooling Pledge will be showcased later in the session. And finally, we will introduce the UNEP IFC joint publication on cooler finance, which we published last year, to explain a little bit about the size of the potential market for the sustainable cooling, and also the opportunities to unlock the private finance. So without further ado, would you like to dive into the first presentations. So first presenter is Miss Miriam Tuhami, who is the head of the UNEP Finance Unit of Climate Change Divisions. And she's going to talk about the finance mechanism and business models, especially from the perspective that the UNEP Finance Unit doing, and also unlocking private finance. A little bit about the Miriam. So Miriam has 20 years of experience in instructing finance mechanism for renewable energy technologies, working with international financing organizations. And she is known for her work in ensuring that climate action initiatives prioritize the needs of vulnerable and marginalized communities. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the Miriam. So over to you.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon or good morning, late morning. So as you know, yes, my name is Miriam Tuhami and we met yesterday. And I'm gonna try to explain to you and to give you concrete examples on how we unlock finance and how we can do it in your countries. Next slide, please. So, yeah, no, before. So our role, slide before. We don't have the good presentation. Okay. So basically, what we do in the finance unit, our role is to enable financing. Is what we do, what we don't do, and what is the impact of the kind of work we implement. So it is true that there is definitely a gap in climate finance. We have a lot of ideas, a lot of projects, but it's very difficult sometimes to find funding. And when I say funding, it is not funding large amounts from GEF, from GCF, you know, all that we know, or about those billions and millions of money that people talk about. It's really mainly the private finance, you know, the finance that missing link between your project, big or small, being financed. So what it is, next slide please. So our unique approach, ours is what? In UNEP, we work with stakeholders, and those stakeholders are the investors, the banks, the local banks mainly, the big financial institutions as well. We talk to technology providers, the installers. We also talk to the governments, because we also believe that every project should have the involvement of the government, even not on the design of it, but just the support. Because once we have a government providing the overall support of a thematic, it usually secures the banking sector, because then the banks will say, I'm not working against the country priorities. So having the public institutions is very important. And of course, our goal is really to ensure an inclusive and just energy transition. We mobilize financing, and we also support countries to shift to low carbon and inclusive development pathway. So of course, this is our goal, and this is what we would like to do. But when we would like to do that, next slide please, we reach obstacles. And the obstacles we receive, or we see in many, many countries, are the limited small-scale projects. We have very high perceived risks. I mean, sometimes they are not really risks. They are just highly perceived by financial institutions. And also we have limited field-proven data, and also sometimes inadequate regulatory framework. So of course, those are the obstacles we face in the countries. And then our objective, next slide please, what we do as the finance unit with the little amount of money we receive from donors is we try to reduce the cost of capital. we provide financing and we design innovative mechanisms in the countries to showcase and to show how banks can provide financing for the technologies that we're trying to promote. And of course, we provide also technical assistance. Next slide, please. So I would like to give you one first example of project. It's called ProSol. In French, it's called Programme Solaire. It is basically, we've done it back in Tunisia, and where we worked with the state utility, and then we wanted to promote the use of solar water heating systems, which is very simple. I mean, solar water heaters is like a very simple panel. It's not photovoltaic, it's thermal. Very simple photovoltaic, you know, a cover, in bonbon, I don't know how you say that in English, a stock for you can stock the water. And then also, we wanted to finance that. And of course, in Tunisia, the government of Tunisia provides a subsidy for electricity and for gas. So it is impossible to take away the subsidy of gas. So what we tried to do, we tried to convince the government, listen, if you provide a 20% subsidy to gas, which is, you're going to be using, people are using it all the time, every day, why don't you provide a 20% subsidy for solar? You will reduce, the Tunisian population will reduce the use of gas, and that gas, you can sell it to international countries, which they need it. They said, no, we're not interested. I said, okay, what if we pay that 20%? What if UNEP, and we show and prove the concept to you that there is a demand for hot water, but instead of being heated by gas, we heat by solar. So this is what we did. We worked with the state utility. We convinced the government that we paid for the 20%. We structured with the banks a 0% interest rate facility. And then we kind of launched the project, and it had enormous interest from the population. And of course, our money was supposed to run for like 4 years. It finished in 18 months because the demand was so high. And then we were able to convince the government, and the government saw that indeed he was saving gas, and then we kind of convinced the government to change the law. Next slide, please. And not only it is working because it worked because the government was making money out of it. The gas that he was subsidizing, using to give to the Tunisians, he was selling it to international countries at much higher cost, you know. And of course, we kind of eliminated the risk of making the population upset, because at the same time, we also provided them with a financial mechanism where they can pay easily without going to the banks. And this is what we put together in Tunisia, we would call the state utility model. So basically what it is, you are a citizen. We identified several suppliers, eligible suppliers that have good equipment. This end user will go to the supplier, will sign a paper. Next slide, please. I will show you. The end user will go to the supplier. He will sign a paper saying, okay, I authorize X supplier to install the system in my house. He gives $0 day one of the signature. Then that supplier will install the equipment. The paperwork will be transferred to the state utility, okay? And then the state utility will insert on the electricity bill of that person who received the solar water heater, then the monthly payment that the end user will pay every month for 5 years. It belongs, we included the reimbursement of the loan in the utility bill. So the person did not have to go to the bank to prove he has the money to take a loan. It does not get into his, I would say, it doesn't touch his possibility to take extra loans. So it is a pure mechanism where the reimbursement of the loan is within the utility bill, and then it's a very simple process where the people will not they do not feel the difficulty to accept or to make the decision to buy a solar thermal or not. Everything has been identified by the project with the government, and then the local banks provide the loan. So the end users select the supplier, the supplier installs by using the latest electricity bill, the system installed, and then the bank pays back the supplier. Very simple. The person who's benefiting from the system does not see the money, does not worry about getting a loan approved. It's very innovative because the state utility allowed to have the reimbursement of that equipment within utility bill. And of course, people cannot not pay their bill, because if you don't pay your bill, you have no more electricity. So these kind of mechanisms, they work in countries where there is a state utility that produces and distributes electricity. It works. It does not, of course, work when the electricity is being distributed by private entities. So this is, next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So of course, I mean, you're going to tell me, oh, solar thermal, it's small amount, yeah. But we have, as of today, the bank has provided more than $425 million as loans. And then because the 16% that the government is there, this is a 20% subsidy that UNEP did for a year and a half. And they saw how much it was successful. They then decided, and they put it by law, that every single renewable energy technology will get 20% subsidy. And UNEP, we provided a 2%, each the interest rate subsidy we provided, which is nothing, because when you take a loan of $1,000, you make it over 5 years. At 5%, it is maybe $15. At 0%, it is $12. The interest rate subsidy does not distort the market. The interest subsidy does not change the decision of a person to either buy or not to buy. But when you give an interest rate subsidy at 0%, you people, it's just in our mind, oh, I'm getting a 0% interest rate loan. But in reality, that 0%, it's only like $2 or $3 per month for 5 years in the loan. So it is one way to stimulate the market. It is one way to create the demand that we're talking about. It's once you create the demand, then everything follows. The supplies come. Of course, in Tunisia, it's an exceptional project because not only the number of suppliers increased dramatically, there are next slide, please. There are manufacturers that came in. So it is really a way to show how once we create the demand, then we can worry about the supply. So of course, like I was saying, the non-payment risk is almost zero because people will not take the risk not to pay the electricity bill. We create a lot of jobs, direct and indirect, because not only the number of importers of equipment increased, the number of installers of solar water heaters increased, and in Tunisia, 2 manufacturers decided to open up a manufacturer in Tunisia to produce for the Tunisian market, but also for the Moroccan market, Libyan market, and all. So of course, why is it great for the consumer? Because he pays 0 as an upfront cost, which is usually the problem. And then of course, the fast access to affordable, clean technologies and to the loan. Next slide, please. So it is, in Tunisia, it can work in any other African countries for small-scale technologies. It can be for small PV systems. It can be for small solar water heater systems. It can be for solar lamps, for like, we can kind of develop these kind of mechanisms, working with the banks to provide the loans, being reimbursed through a different channel. We have done that in many countries, and it's something that can be easily replicable. And it does not require huge funding. It does. Another one that we did is Hipoteca Verde, which is a green mortgage. We have done it in Mexico. and we worked with Infonavit. Infonavit is a large public bank that provides loans to the people who work for the government. Next slide, please. So basically, we worked for social houses because we wanted those social houses to be slightly greener. So what we did, we included the cost of the solar water heater and then additional equipment, like we refixed some of the retrofits of the windows, and that cost of 1,250 was added on the bill, was added on the loan. But normally, when you buy a house, anybody of us, when we get a mortgage, we all get mortgages for 15, 20 years. That's not an issue because the bank takes the houses as collateral. That's easy. But when you want to add something to it, when you want to buy, it's like when you want to buy a car, you take commercial loans, and the loans are usually no more than 3 years. And then, of course, when you take a loan over 3 years, the monthly payment is quite high, and that's why people cannot afford it. But when you take an amount which is that little, 1,250, over 20 years, that reimbursement of that extra amount is so little. So in here, that extra amount that we used for solar water heater and then we used for windows, in a social house, that monthly payment was around $6 per month. But the person will save $17 on the electricity bill. So you see how when you design a mechanism, very simple, it's like, how can you convince a bank to provide you a $1,000 loan over 20 years? It's almost impossible in any country. But when you add it through a project or you add it through an existing mechanism like a mortgage, then it becomes possible. Yes, next slide, please. So of course, those are the two kind of mechanisms that we developed in the finance unit, among others, in a very specific that could be used for cooling. And when I say cooling, it can be air conditioning, it can be passive cooling is slightly more difficult, and I've always said that passive cooling, to get financed through a bank, it's not simple because there's no collateral. Banks, they finance collateral. They don't finance anything else. They finance collateral. So so those are the two projects. The next project I would like to talk to you about is Empower. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a video. It is how we help women that are really very not connected to the cities, very vulnerable women that have most of the time no access to banks, not even literate, and how in Power, we have done it in Asia, how this project and helped, and how we were able to design mechanisms, financial ones, to help these women to access to funding. Can you please play, please? So it's a short video. So I don't think you have the latest presentation. Can I connect my computer? Okay. Why don't you just keep if you can put just the next slides, it's okay. We can show the video later. You want to put it back on the screen, what you had? Well, sorry. Okay. So I will show you the next video for Empower. So basically what we did in Asia is we worked with microfinance organizations where we structured we structured financial mechanism lines, credit lines, where the women, despite the lack of assets, despite the lack of bankability, we were able to allow them to get loans. And sometimes the innovative way we structure them is that the reimbursement terms do not follow the traditional terms. They don't have to take a loan and pay every month. Sometimes they pay once they have sold their production, once they have sold their bananas, or what they have sold. So it is very, very focused and targeted to that population on how we structure the mechanisms with the banks. Another project that we also developed and that we currently have is called the Seed Capital Assistance Facility, where basically this is for much larger programs, where we provide reimbursable grants. So basically we have a facility in the finance unit where if someone in one country wants to develop a small plant of wind or PV or any kind of renewable energy technology, and then, people want to do it, but they lack the money to do the original studies. They lack the money to do what is needed to get a project bankable. So UNEP provide that grant. We provide and we assist and we help the entrepreneurs and we assist the promoters to really develop the project. We pay for the entire project development until it becomes bankable. Once we reach the financial closure, meaning we convinced banks that it is a bankable project, which can have a rate of a return of investment, then the bank finances the project, and then the promoter reimburses that loan, that grant. So we call that a reimbursable grant. So the bank provides the financing, and the bank pays us back the grant that we advanced. Of course, if the project for a reason X and Y did not get bank financial funding, we lose the grant. We do not request the promoter to pay us back. The promoter only pays us back once the bank provides the funding. So this is what we call reimbursable grant. And this is one mechanism that we have ongoing mainly for Africa and also for Southeast Asia. We also have a video there, but I'll show it to you later if it works. Next slide, please. You can play, yeah. Or let me finish. Yeah, play in power, please. That's scarf. You can plant scarf as well if you have. You have? In fact, in reality, sometimes we have the tendency to believe that it is difficult to access financing because you have all these very large banks that they say, we have millions and billions, accessible, but it's very difficult to access the funding. So that's why helping and assisting the development of such projects is something that the finance unit does. So basically, for each country we go to, we assess what the needs are, we identify where the barriers are, why the banks are not providing lending, and then with the little amount of money we have, we kind of unlock that barrier, we kind of fix it. We take it out because most of the banks, they usually are willing and they want to look for projects on the ground. They're not there just to be there. So we basically helping them as well to really unlock and find projects on the ground. So this is the Empower, which is the project in
She runs a tea cooperative. Because of climate change, her village has been facing flash floods, negatively impacting her business. With limited access to finance, Maya struggled to keep her business going. Many women lack the means to open bank accounts and access loans as they face challenges in providing collateral or an adequate credit history. Cultural norms, lower education levels, and exclusion from decision-making processes make it harder for them to get the funds they need. Through a low-interest loan catering to women, Maya purchased a solar-powered drying facility, allowing her to adapt to climate shifts and make her business more sustainable. Her cooperative grew and started employing more women. Climate finance is critical for addressing climate change, but for it to be effective and equitable, it must be gender-responsive. Gender-responsive climate finance considers the specific needs of women, men, and gender-diverse individuals, ensuring that financial products and services cater to their diverse backgrounds and abilities, aiming to support them in coping with climate impacts while improving their lives and livelihoods. When women like Maya access finance for climate-resilient businesses or clean technologies, they can adapt better to climate change and help reduce emissions. To realize this, collaboration among diverse stakeholders is key. Governments should create an enabling environment for women to access financial products and services, for the private sector and development partners to invest in projects benefiting women, and for communities to scale up their solutions. Financial institutions, along with partners and local organizations, can create funds serving women's needs, boost their financial literacy, and design gender-specific financial products, ensuring they reach women left out by traditional financial services. Women and other marginalized groups need to be provided with an equal seat at the table. Their voices and perspectives must be integrated into decisions that shape policy, planning, and budgeting processes, thereby driving more equitable, innovative, and accountable financing solutions. Gender-responsive climate finance is critical in tackling the climate crisis and creating a more equal and resilient future for everyone.
So just for information, Maya's cooperative is really growing. And of course, the good thing is, she's hiring more women. But sometimes, even when you put together a very specific credit line for women, like I have seen that in Cambodia, where we worked with the guarantee facility, where they put a specific line for women, even that doesn't work. Because the guarantee facility will add a cost of that guarantee facility. They will say, well, it will cost an extra 2 points to the interest rates. And of course, then that discourages women to go under that. So the UNEP money, the finance unit money that we get, we pay for that 2%, because the government, sometimes the governments, the banks, they do their role. They do create specific dedicated line of credit for renewables for women, but there's always a cost attached to it. So this is where we come in and we pay for that cost. And this is where we come in, and then we encourage the women and others to use those dedicated credit lines. Because it's not just one thing of to say money is available. Money is available at what cost? And as soon as it is more expensive when it is for other things, it is not taken. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay, so this is CAF. This is what the reimbursable grant facility that we are running. And I will encourage anybody of you to go and check it out on the internet and get in contact with us if needed, if you know of any entrepreneurs or promoters in your country that will be interested. You want to run it? Go ahead.
But before breaking ground, projects like the Diaphone wind, the world's coal addiction is growing, pushing us further from our climate goals. In Vietnam, more than 45% of the country's electricity still comes from coal, but winds of change are blowing through the country thanks to a new approach to financing clean energy projects. Dai Phong Wind Power Project has provided Vietnam's Van Thuan province with a range of economic and environmental benefits.
Đối với điện gió thì tác động rất là tích cực đến cộng đồng dân cư của địa phương. Trước tiên là tác động đến cái về mặt tạo được cái công ăn việc làm của địa phương. Cái thứ hai nữa là giảm thiểu bớt cái về cái môi trường.
But before breaking ground, projects like the Dai Phong wind farm need investors to help fund startup costs and break through red tape. Investment is the missing piece in the global energy transition. The world requires up to $2.1 trillion of investment annually between 2021 and 2050 for a net zero transition if it wants to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius climate goal. UNEP's Seed Capital Assistance Facility aims to fill this gap and mitigate the risks by unlocking a combination of public and private sector financing for renewable energy projects in emerging markets across Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa.
We have been the first foreigner company to build a wind farm in Vietnam. The help of SCAF have been invaluable. This part of the world was late to adopt renewables, so that was the opportunity, and that's still the opportunity.
In addition to providing clean, renewable energy, SCAF-supported projects promote skills development, local job creation, and long-term economic opportunities.
We consider the environmental factors because we want to ensure the sustainability of the project, and we ensure that the chosen area does not create a negative impact on the local farmland and residential areas.
Local communities of our projects are the ones who are going to see our turbines every day and live with them for 20, 25, 30 years. So again, we have to build these projects with them and for them and with their support.
Since its launch, SCAF has supported 49 renewable energy projects across 19 countries. These projects have spanned economic development with the creation of over 2,300 jobs and contribute to the environment by reducing more than 6 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions annually.
By getting the first projects, so the first solar project or wind farm or small hydro site built in a country, we can start to, from a commercial perspective, realize that this is a technology that's very fit for purpose, and in many ways it's actually more reliable and less costly than a lot of the electricity alternatives that currently exist.
SCAF grants are repayable upon project completion, helping to ensure the sustainability of the model. The Blue Circle has already repaid its grant for the Dai Phong wind power project and invested those funds in their pipeline of new renewable energy projects in the region. Every fraction of a degree matters.
Yeah, so Blue Circle, we have given them 1.5 million as a grant. And then they have reimbursed us when it got financing from the banks. So what I'm saying is, yeah, you're gonna tell me, oh, it's small, one project, one at a time. Yes, this is what we do in finance. We, in the finance unit, we are the last milestone. We are the ones that when something cannot do it, a bank is too costly for a bank, we do it. We want to showcase, we want to prove, and one by one we succeed. Next slide, please. Yes, not before. Okay.
But before breaking ground, project.
Yeah, so this is where we, I think in the finance unit, we do not do a copy and paste model. Each country we identify, like I said, and then we come up with some different kind of models. And of course, in Tunisia, we did the interest rate subsidy. We do the reimbursable grants. We do the leasing model. We kind of, for us, every single country is different. And I'm going to give you a story. When I succeeded doing the project in Tunisia, which was a great success, the Programme Solaire, the ProSol, great success. You know, the world well known. People, you can go Google it. It's been ongoing for years. Great economy. We created a great market. We started with households. We went to hotels. We went to industry sector. We went to PV. Now it's called ProSol Elec. Everybody was telling me, "Oh, Miriam, why can't you do it in Morocco? Morocco, you're Moroccan. Same language, same everything. Didn't work, never worked. I tried all my best, never worked. Never worked because I was unable to convince the government to do what Tunisia did, to switch from gas, to solar. They were worried about riots. They were worried that how it is perceived if we tell to the population, oh yeah, you know, they're gonna cut the gas on that. They were worried about that, so didn't work. So like I said, in Morocco and Tunisia, you would swear they could be the same country. So each country is different. We do not do copy and paste. We are very tailored, innovative, and we try to resolve one issue. And then we do not believe that we can change the world. We do not believe that we can do with very large, huge facilities, we can do a lot of things. We believe that with small amounts of money, 1, 2 million, we can address one issue and create one market. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miriam. So yeah, I think we are very impressed with your capacity to make this complicated system, to make it like actually simple and user-friendly, also convincing banks. So in the interest of time, I'd like to give the audience the floor to ask any questions to Miriam or any kind of observations and comment. Okay, so Nigeria, you raise your card, right? No? Good. I saw. Yes, please. Sorry, I can't. Peru, yes, please.
Thank you. I would like to know what actions can government do to help to give the enabling conditions. For example, in Peru, we are working in our green climate taxonomy. Does something like this, it's helpful, or what role does it play in this scheme?
Yes, of course, it's really helpful. It's even mandatory, I would say. How you can help is that first you need to identify which market or which technology you would like to push for your country. If, for example, if you're going to tell me we would like to push photovoltaic because we have the sun, then I'm going to tell you, okay, photovoltaic, you need to identify how much people are paying on the electricity bill. Is electricity being subsidized in Peru? If electricity is subsidized, then it's more difficult to convince people to buy photovoltaic. So let's, as simple as that. We do not try to push for technologies that do not make sense financially, because the only way something works is that if it's the environment plus economically makes sense for the end user. It's very important to, we always, when we develop project, we think of it as what is in at the end of the month on my pocket. I mean, I can be working for UNEP for the past 20 years. If financially does not make sense for me, I will not do it, regardless of environment or not. Because many people from different, where we come from, especially, I mean, many in Africa, and we are not really responsible for the climate change. I mean, if we compare our role to our carbon footprint compared to the US or to China, whatever, I mean, how can you ask me, my little person in Africa, telling me I need to make a sacrifice? No. The sacrifice, I will only make it if it makes sense at the end of the month on my paycheck. So in Peru, the government should think of where can we change things, and then is it if things are heavily subsidized, we need to see how can we use renewable energy technologies to uplift that subsidies. And then if, for example, it should take 20-30% capital cost of solar to kind of come in, to make it competitive to what is being subsidized, so be it. We need to go and convince donors, listen, in Peru, in order to take away those subsidies, we need to put 30% capital cost subsidy. I'll push for it, because I believe that's the only way to convince the people to buy that kind of technology. But the government is really, really important. It's really the foundation. I mean, in Morocco, in Tunisia, it worked because of the government. In Morocco, it didn't, because I was unable to convince them to do so. And just to show you, this is the impact of our work that we have been, since the finance unit has been existing. It's been existing for 22 years. We have raised so far $124 million, which is not that much if you think about it. But our impact is huge on job creation, on money that we leverage. We leverage $6.25 billion from banks. You know? I mean, with that kind of little grant money coming from the government's, taxpayers' money, we were able to leverage that much money from banking sector addressing 51 countries. So that's why I believe that the grant money, if it is used very innovatively, and targeting really specific projects, we can really leverage a lot more from the private banking sector. Ghana, I think.
And so Ghana, please.
Okay, so thank you very much, and congratulations on the presentation. I just wanted to cross-check with you on the SCAF program. Is it possible to also tie to technology, cooling technologies, for example, in the cold chain? So I just wanted some clarity on that.
Yes, it is, because what we are doing currently is, we started SCAF almost 10 years ago. We had a SCAF 1 where we did all the work. Now we're doing on SCAF 2, where we're concentrating our work on renewables, meaning. And now we are hopefully be getting $20 million grant to do a SCAF 3, and the idea is to also add cooling technologies into it. But cooling activities, once again, it's not, I'm sorry Lily, but it's not passive cooling, because a bank will not finance a passive technology. There is no technology to finance. So our role as SCAF is to work on projects that are bankable, that they can have a financial return to them. So it is true that it can be using photovoltaic for cooling, for refrigerators, solar refrigerators. You can use PV equipment. So we can for cooling, but it has to be tangible assets to be financed.
Thank you.
I don't know how we're going to get finance for passive. We're going to get grant money for passive. We're going to convince the German, the Italians, everybody to give us money for passive cooling. But honestly, I've been working with banks for many, many years. All of us, we experience in our real life. When you want to buy a house, you put your house as collateral. Your house, So nobody will give you a loan to pay for something. Not a bank, at least. There is no, But you can add PV, you can add the windows, that you need for retrofits, for cooling, all that you can. But it has to be, you need to have tangible products to finance.
Sorry, I can't see.
I can't see.
You can, okay, UK please first. Togo first.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate example share, but I have one concern. Do you have one design or example of public-private partnership at the local level?
The state utility model.
Yeah, in terms of technology transfer of cooling activities.
Yeah. The state utility model, the state utility is a public entity. We're working with the Government Ministry of Energy, who is our implementing agency. And then we're working with all the suppliers, the installers, the manufacturers, that's all private. For example, in Tunisia, which is a good example, there were no manufacturers locally. So there was a south-to-south transfer of technology. And then there was a creation of solar panels manufacturers in Tunisia, 2 of them. So this is really a public, because it's the government. It's a project is being implemented by the government. UNEP is just, it was, because it's no longer anymore, they don't need us anymore, it was just that coordinator, that one who kind of put around the same table the state utility, the banks, the suppliers, you know. We just kind of, we were like the catalyzer, you know. And then we brought in a little bit of money for the whole Tunisia project, for which we have raised 425 million as of today. We only put in 2 million. And our 2 million went for what? Went for communication campaign, went for subsidizing the interest rate a little bit. So our role as UNEP, the finance unit at least, I see it as a catalyzer agent. But the best projects that I have worked in are public and private partnerships. We have done the same in Mexico, we have done the same in many other countries, you know, so those are the best that have really long-term sustainability, because we do create a market, and we're doing hopefully the same in Djibouti and the EPIC. So really the idea is to work with the government, but at the same time, the government needs to understand that he cannot be the one choosing the installers. He cannot be the one deciding who will be the manufacturers, you know. He needs to let the market play its role. The best, you know, the most competitive companies will win.
UK, please.
Thank you very much for some real good example of how you can deliver action on the ground. I've got a bit of a tangential question, and I don't really know what the question is, okay, so just hang fire and bear with me. But we heard yesterday from colleagues that procurement of air conditionings for small countries is sometimes really expensive. Because of the lack of economies of scale. And I wonder whether there is an opportunity here for us as a collective. We have 72 countries that will all be buying collectively some form of air conditioner. And I wonder whether that has value somehow. By pooling together some sort of procurement power together, that has some value. And maybe that's something we should explore somehow. I have some ideas how to do this, but I'd be really keen, maybe, I don't know the answer, I don't know what the question is, okay, but just something going around in my head that maybe we should talk about. So, so apologies for rambling.
Is it how to create a market for super efficient appliances? Sort of, or?
Yeah, exactly. That's what's coming in my mind. And actually, there could be an opportunity to create a global cooling pledge certified air conditioner. Okay. Oh,
I don't know about that part, but
no. There could be an opportunity.
No, yes,
and by having something like that, you could drive economies of scale. You could drive up efficiency in terms of rating, and you can make sure you deal with the issue of refrigerant dumping at the same time. And it could cover lots and lots of opportunities. I don't know what the question is, but it's just going around in my head. So apologies for rambling. I had a bit of a late night. Apologies.
I might have not an answer, but a suggestion. I don't believe that one day, you know, we will be able to create or to have a large procurement, you know, process combining all the countries. I think it will be ideal. It will be like perfect. But you know, the reality is I don't see it happening. But what we can do, I think, and this is what the minimum, they will be talking to you about it later. I just came before because I have to leave, but the minimum energy performances, I think those are important, because when we go to a country and then we can tell, you know, you can only use products that are energy efficient. So if we have labels per country, and each country is different because your energy performance in the UK is definitely not the same one in Djibouti or in Morocco. So if we can, each country has its own minimum energy performances. And then if we can just have that per country, and then identify in which countries it does make sense to go air conditioning or not, you know. In Djibouti, for example, the cost of energy is so high, and then the people pay up more than 60% of their electricity bill just on using air conditioning, 60%. And people in the summer people is very poor, and people in the summer, they have bills of like $400 every 2 months, which is like $250 per month, which is huge, which is the equivalent of the minimum wage of Morocco. $250 per month is the minimum wage in Morocco. So the idea I found, and I think when I was there, and I was so shocked by the heat, and I said, you know, what can we do for that country? There are no certified air conditioning. There is no minimum energy performances. There are no norms to start with. And then we still need to find a solution. So what we have decided with UNDP is to, okay, we got some money to start working on the norms. While we are working on the norms, while we are doing it, we started discussion with the banks. I tried to convince the state utility to come up and to help us. No way. They're not interested, because it's a lack of, if we do not use the electricity that is being given by the state utility, their business model will go down. They will lose revenues, which makes sense. But they are the state utility, so it doesn't make sense. Why can't you do it? They still do not want to. Fine. All right, we can do that. We cannot use the state utility. What are we going to do? We decided that it will be nice to buy a PV system and to hook to it just the air conditioning, not for the entire house. Because of course the state utility will go mad then. So we're gonna do a project, and hopefully under EPIC, where we're working on the norms, we're working with the banks, they will provide a loan to buy a combined PV plus 1 air conditioning. And that air conditioner should be certified. Certified by whom? For the moment we don't know, because we're working on the certification, but at least we find a solution where we bypass the state utility because they don't want to work with us. We bypass the norms because we don't have them, but we're developing them. But we're gonna do step by step. We're gonna start by maybe the first systems will not be perfect until we get the norms on, the testing done. That will take 2-3 years. We don't have time to wait. So we're gonna use the EPIC money to finance, to help the banks to finance, to subsidize the cost of the loans to the to buy PV plus air conditioning. Once they do that, people, they will see the electricity bill going down by 60%. You imagine 60% on your electricity bill? I think I've never seen that in any other country in the world. 60%. So we find solutions. They are not perfect. Of course, I would have loved to work with the government, but he doesn't want to. What can we do? You know, sometimes it takes. So this is the kind of work that I would like to do for EPIC, which I've been doing it for the past 20 years for renewable energy technologies. This is the kind of solution we need to find country by country. And in the ideal world is that the government wants to work with you, but it doesn't always work for X reasons. When it doesn't, it does not mean that we should stop. We should continue and find alternatives. Yes, Morocco.
Thank you.
There's UAE.
Sorry.
So UAE.
UAE.
Then,
Sorry,
well,
UAE. Yeah.
UAE, please.
And then Grenada.
Thank you, Mariam. This is very interesting. Just out of curiosity, if there is any lesson learned regarding the risk analysis, because in this kind of project, normally you depend on the energy saving to cover your investment. But what if something happened? I mean, for example, a whole area was demolished, or the change in the prices of electricity, or people decide all of a sudden that they will not pay. I know government are supporting, but if you have any lesson learned from any of other projects, it will be very interesting to hear about.
Sure. We have some studies that were done by independent policy initiative. Like one is called the Climate Policy Initiative. It's like a think tank that have done some analysis, which has nothing to do with UNEP, and I will send that to you on many of on ProSol and many other of our projects. But yeah, there are always risks, and then indeed, we bet on the fact that electricity bill will keep by going up, not down. So that's a bet. If of course tomorrow the electricity cost goes down, okay, it's a failure. It's a risk that we were not able to mitigate. But when you buy an equipment, for example, photovoltaic system, it has a lifetime of 15 years. You take a loan normally over 5 years. So we can take the bet that not much will change within the day you bought. And after that, your system is free, I would say, because you have completely repaid it, and you have already completely saved enough to repay that system. So there are risks, of course, that are impossible to if the system doesn't work. And one of the things, we never work on a financial mechanism on an equipment that is not guaranteed by the supplier. The equipment is always guaranteed by the supplier as long as the loan is ongoing. So if a bank provides a loan of 15 years, the system has 5 years. The guarantee is for 5 years. In Mexico, for the Hipoteca Verde, the guarantee was over 20 years of the system. Because we know that I always put myself in the place of the person who will buy. If I buy a TV and I take a loan over 2 years, and after 1 year it doesn't work, so I'm going to do? I'm not going to pay my loan, I'm going to stop paying it. So that's why the guarantee of the equipment and the guarantee of the installation is always guaranteed, and especially when we have the government involved. Because when there is no government in the project, it's more complicated, because when you ask a supplier to provide a 10-year guarantee, he will make you pay for it. He's not going to do it for free. So instead of selling his equipment at 1,000, he will be selling it 1,200. So that's why it's always nice to have public-private partnership, because it helps to secure the market. Yes.
And next, Morocco, please.
Morocco.
I think.
Okay, we need to wrap up quickly, like we take the two interventions briefly, and then we need to go to the lunch break because the kitchen is closing soon. So hopefully we can wrap up soon. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, then
Okay,
Morocco and Granada. Then.
I think now I will speak in French because for financial aspects it's a little bit difficult.
I'll translate, don't worry.
Ok, merci beaucoup Myriam pour cette excellente présentation. Donc c'est seulement en abordant le sujet de la collaboration avec le gouvernement et bien sûr c'est-à-dire la coopération avec les autorités, le gouvernement et tout, et pour bénéficier.
Okay. She's just asking about when we want to work with the government and the governmental institutions.
Et pour bénéficier de certains fonds et débloquer c'est-à-dire les fonds pour les investissements, je pense un petit peu à voix haute concernant l'expérience qu'on avait eue dans le cadre de la coopération avec la KfW. C'est-à-dire on avait un projet de coopération d'un fonds de 240 millions de dollars, si je me rappelle bien. Ça fait des années. Et c'était pour la mise à niveau environnementale c'est-à-dire de l'industrie.
Yeah, she was just asking about a project that Morocco has had with GW, pas GIZ, avec qui?
KfW.
KfW.
La coopération allemande.
Yeah, how to kind of bring the industry sector up to speed, yes.
C'est ça, la mise à niveau environnementale du secteur industriel. Et donc je me dis, parce que quand même dans ce projet-là, il y avait pour des projets intégrés, il y avait une partie, c'est-à-dire un pourcentage qui est sous forme de dons, et il y avait un autre pourcentage, c'est-à-dire l'autofinancement par le promoteur, il y avait une autre partie crédit. Et donc ça dépend, est-ce que c'est des projets en amont, c'est-à-dire des projets intégrés, ou bien des projets en aval, pour tout ce qui est traitement de la problématique environnementale. Et donc je me dis, est-ce que, c'est-à-dire, on peut s'en inspirer pour avoir, c'est-à-dire des mesures incitatives comme ça, pour avoir un fonds dans le cadre d'un projet de coopération avec tel gouvernement.
Okay, so she's asking that in the project that was financed by Germany was that they had a loan part and a grant part, and then she was thinking that what if we can get inspired by that kind of project to work with the government, right? To get a grant part.
Pour faire bénéficier le secteur industriel.
Yeah.
Adopter,
that will be beneficial to industrial sector.
en coopération avec le
Yeah,
gouvernement,
yeah.
et c'est-à-dire pour faire bénéficier le secteur industriel et pour leur contribution dans ces mesures dans le secteur du froid.
Yeah, how can that money, the grant money is given to the industry sector and to help them to get them to help the design in Morocco. Morocco is a complicated country. Morocco, just for the people who are here, I am Moroccan full-time, 100%. Morocco, it's a country, they do great things, but they do great things for the show. I'm sorry, and Morocco, if I have to make the opposition with Tunisia, they don't go down to the details. The project that you're talking about, which I know, it's to provide loans to the industry sector, and the grant part was for technical assistance. But the loans that were sitting in a bank, the money that was given by KfW sitting in a bank, they had a very hard time to disperse the money.
Okay.
It's easy to say we're going to put some money and then it's for industry sector. They had a hard time because the conditions to access that loans were quite high for Moroccan standard, maybe not high, but so we had, that was many, many years ago. We had an idea for that project, I remember, where we could, the finance unit money comes and soften that loans to make it more accessible to the industry sector. I think it is, there are countries where it's very simple to get things because each institution has a very specific mandate. And you're not the one I have to tell you that. In Morocco, it's completely, everybody does everything. We don't know if it's the National Agency of Energy Conservation, or if it's the Ministry, or if it's the new agency of solar. So when the institutions are not clear, who has the mandate to do what, it's very difficult to have something very substantial to be done, unless it is something that is piloted by the Royal Cabinet. This is where it flies, and those are the big, nice projects. But to do very small projects, like I was describing, like Empower or like ProSol, it's, in Morocco, for the past 20 years, I never succeeded. The only small project that I was able to do with the Moroccan government is to change the incandescent lamps by energy efficient, but it's very small. So it's not all, it's great to have the government involved, but when the government is not there, we need to move to the purely private sector. Because sometimes when the I am not blaming anybody, but sometimes the institutions do not really work well, even if they are government. So, you know, in Djibouti, the state utility says no. The Ministry of Energy, he said, well, we should push them. Yeah, but how? If they said no, they said no. So, I mean, you do it differently, you prove the concept, and then maybe you have the ability to make them change their mind. But in each country I see, and I have not been, unfortunately, to many sub-Saharan African countries, but it's really difficult to make things work, really.
Okay, so last intervention from Grenada, please.
We have also Comoros, but briefly, please. Yeah, we have also Comoros.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Convener. And I just want to offer some comments based on the trend of the conversation so far. And I want to, first of all, focus on the financial sector and then on the whole issue of pool procurement that was introduced. Now, in my neck of the woods, in my country, the financial sector, both the commercial banks and the development banks, to me, have not really gotten on board with the full extent and understanding of what we're trying to achieve with renewable energy and sustainable cooling. And I want to give two quick examples. In the case of the commercial banks, they have made all of the interventions. So, for example, they have put PV on their roofs, they have changed their air conditioners, they have changed their bulbs from incandescent and CFLs to LEDs, and they are benefiting from that. But yet still they have failed to create a product that their clients can benefit from in the same way. As a matter of fact, the interest rates on renewable energy products is higher than mortgage rates. And then they combine that with the mortgage rate. So if you take a standalone loan, the interest rate is higher, much higher than a mortgage rate. But if you take it together with the mortgage rate goes up a little bit. So it really does not encourage it. In the case of the development bank, who have grant financing to give loans to people who want to make those interventions, the conditions for which you have to access that is very, very tough. And you mentioned a while ago that there was money in the bank in Morocco that was not utilized, so we had a similar situation. The people who can afford to repay the loan were disqualified because of the quote-unquote vulnerability index. And so that money was not moving.
I can assure you, Grenada is no different from any other countries. What you're saying is exactly the same in many other countries I've been visiting. But if I include my PV system in my mortgage, okay, and yes, the bank will tell you, I'm going to give you extra money, and then maybe if you don't pay your loan, I can recover the house, but I cannot recover the PV because you may take it out because it's something. But then if that extra percentage, that extra 1% if they're going to charge, if it can be covered by, for example, UNEP in our case, you know, and then prove to the end user, thanks to that PV you put on your roof, you are saving more than the 1%. The problem is not that people do not believe until they see it, you know. People, even me, I mean, honestly, I mean, why would I buy a PV in my house if I'm not going to save money? And how would I know? I mean, you can tell me, I cannot trust you because your name is Miriam. I trust you if you prove it to me. So, and I agree with you, that the cost and the interest rates for renewables in any country are higher because the risk is higher. But if someone else pays that risk, the risk is no longer there. Another thing, if you want to buy, for example, a PV system, and I'm able to convince your telecommunication company to insert the reimbursement of that loan in your telephone bill, which the telecommunication company has nothing to do with PV, right? But you got a loan from the bank for 1,000. The reimbursement is via your telecom bill. You don't want to lose your phone number. Usually because as an African, we're very proud of our phone numbers, then we don't like to change them all the time. So you're going to pay your telephone bill with the reimbursement of your PV system on it. And here, you don't have to prove to the bank that you have the means to repay. You know what I mean? So the risk assessment is no longer on your head. Do you have the salary to repay or not? We included the reimbursement of the loan in a bill that you cannot afford not to pay.
So I understand that. And I'm moderating very quickly because I want to get to the last more substantial point, which is on the pool procurement that was introduced by the colleague from the UK. And a very interesting response came from you. Now, in my neck of the woods, in our region, the Caribbean, we actually promote pool procurement or bulk procurement for several reasons. Economies of scale, and we have small islands with very small consumption that manufacturers and suppliers don't see really the need to engage. And so when we do bulk procurement, we can attract better prices. We have a larger amount that they might be willing to do. As a matter of fact, we have successful mechanisms within the region of CARICOM, the sub-region of the OECS, where we do bulk procurement for pharmaceuticals and then redistribute to the islands. And that has been there for over 20 years and working very successful. So that is one of the ways in which we get around the supply chain issue. And that has been working very well. So it may not be the same in other regions, but regional cooperation and bulk procurement is one of the areas that we have identified for getting around supply chain issues.
You're going to allow me to disagree with you and maybe to agree with you because of your country, because I don't know Grenada, so I don't know. We have done bulk procurement to buy energy efficient lamps from Morocco, 15 million, hoping to showcase. Yes, the price was low. We did the reimbursement of that bulk procurement, no problem, oh, fine. It worked quite well, but it stopped at there. We did 15 million lamps, and we were unable to convince the people to buy by themselves. They're all waiting for the price of $2 per lamp. We distort the market by doing bulk procurement. Now, I'm talking about the country of Morocco, where we have 40 million people. We changed 15 million lamps, we change the lamps of maybe less than 1 million houses. You know, it does not, the bulk procurement does not create the market. You kind of distort the dynamic of a market. Supply, demand, the price goes down because the demands go high. But in countries, maybe in Grenada, I know that in some islands it might work, because the number in Djibouti it might work. It's like 800,000 households, a population, maybe what? It should be like 30, 40,000 houses. You know, it will work, but it does not create a market. And we cannot do bulk procurement. The country cannot do a bulk procurement because you kill the market. In my opinion, I said I disagree with you.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
We'll take it over lunch.
Just
So-
one quick thing, Ganai. So we know in India bulk procurement has worked for fans, for fan replacement, and ACs with public bulk procurement is working. But yeah, it's very difficult, and not every country will be the same. But bulk procurement has worked in India, we could say, in dropping price of the. But it needs a large mass of purchase orders.
Mega big.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So,
Comor.
yeah.
Last
okay.
one, Comor.
Okay, last one, the Comoros, please.
So, but please, after that, we really need to finish this session so we can move to lunch. Otherwise, the kitchen will be closed. I'm sorry to remind you again.
Okay.
Ok, merci beaucoup Madame pour la présentation qui était vraiment intéressant. Comme on n'a pas assez de temps avec nous, je vais aller droit au but. Tout d'abord, je voudrais savoir les défis rencontrés pendant la mise en œuvre de ce projet, parce que c'est bien implémenté, le processus est merveilleux, mais je voudrais savoir les défis que vous avez rencontrés pendant le processus de ce projet. Ma deuxième question se localise sur le gouvernement, parce que le cas des Comores est un peu semblable au cas de Djibouti. Comment vous avez procédé à la sensibilisation des décideurs? Comment vous avez implémenté ce projet pour qu'enfin les décideurs puissent accepter et adhérer à ce projet? Parce que comme chez nous, aux Comores, le secteur privé n'est pas vraiment développé. Je crois que c'est le cas aussi de la Djibouti.
Ouais. Okay.
On n'a qu'un seul distributeur énergétique qui est une société de l'État.
Yeah.
Et c'est cher, bien sûr, comme
Yeah.
ils sont les seuls.
Yeah.
J'aimerais savoir comment vous avez procédé sur la sensibilisation et l'acceptation de ce projet au niveau des décideurs. Merci.
She's asking me about what are the challenges that I have faced to really implement and how to convince the decision makers to change their mind or to include what we're proposing into their decision making. I'm going to answer in English because people speak English, and I will translate to you in French. So I'll give you the case of Djibouti. Djibouti, the state utility, like I said, do not want to get involved because we just started. We just started like 2-3 months ago. So my goal and my objective, okay, and how do I do? So the way we do it is, usually, we do a first mission to the country and we meet everybody. Going from the government, private sector, associations, we meet everybody, and we kind of assess where is the problem. In Djibouti, we identified that the problem was the state utility is not interested, because we even asked for a meeting, we were never approached. And you know, in Africa, when you ask for something and you get no, you don't get a no, but you don't get a yes as an answer, they just don't care. They just don't want to tell you. Even if we send the letter from the highest person of the UN, okay, so they were not interested. So in Djibouti, the plan is, we have not yet done it, but the plan is, we have negotiated with the banks, that is done. The plan is to do it without the state utility. But we do not touch the installations that are being done by the state utility. Like I said, we will connect 1 kilowatt PV system directly to an air conditioner. That means that the Djiboutian people will no longer use the electricity being distributed in their house to have the air conditioning. And that PV system will only provide electricity to air conditioning. It's not efficient. It makes more sense because we're going to have a PV system to hook the whole house. Yes, but they don't want to. So we have to show them that the PV is working for air conditioning, meaning they will see a decrease of their revenues by 60%. Once they will realize that on their books, then they will come and want to sit and discuss. And then you can help them and you can tell them, okay, we want you to be managing this whole process like we did in Tunisia. We want you to identify who are the suppliers of the PV and the air conditioning and all. We want you to undertake and take ownership of it. In Djibouti, we have not succeeded. In Tunisia, we did. Why? How? We convinced them. They were not interested. They said, no, we paid for that 20% subsidy. It worked. They realized. We wrote a paper. We went to see the Prime Minister. We tell them, listen, look, how much your country will be saving. You imagine? You will be saving the LPG, the gas, that you can resell to Europeans. And I remember at that time, there was a crisis of gas for Europe. You can resell that gas to Europe. He said, oh, really? So we did the calculation. We ran a business case. We did them the optimist and very pessimistic. He was thrilled. He called the state utility general director. And in some countries, like in ours, the general directors of state utilities are sometimes more powerful than the Minister of Finance. So he called him up and he said, I want you to use PV, solar thermals. He said no. He told him, no, the state utility is not interested. He said, you do it or you're fired. At that point, we had Prime Minister of Tunisia who was young and dynamic and powerful. And they didn't have a choice than to accept. 10, 15 years later, there is in the state utility of Tunisia a department called Renewable Energy State Utility. They are doing it not just for solar, they're doing it, like I said, for the hotels, for the industry sector, and they're doing it now for the photovoltaic for the houses. So it is a matter of convincing slowly. But you don't convince by reports, you don't convince because you name, you work with the UN. You convince because you show them, you prove to them that they're going to make money out of it. Not because, you don't prove it because it's good for the environment. You prove to the government that they will be saving money from gas instead of keeping subsidizing the Tunisian population. Yeah, so this is how and I can translate that to you over lunch if you want.
Thank you very much, Miriam. So please give her the large applause.
Wait, one thing. I know all my team is going to kill me because it's time to go. I just want to say one thing. How are we financing passive cooling in Nigeria?
I don't know. I'm going to try to convince our German friend from the government to give us some money. I don't know. Passive cooling cannot be financed through banks.
We're doing the IFC thing, remember?
No, Lily. IFC, they do not finance passive cooling. IFC, they use money.
Not true. It's green buildings.
The Magic Project. The IFC, they do, but it's not a loan that they give. When I say passive cooling, I say the nature thing, the orientation of the building. This is not something that can be financed by a bank. Can it?
Nature. Yeah, I know.
Can a bank finance plants?
As part of a package, I think. As part of
I have to look at it.
They do.
Okay.
They do, you know, when it has to do with passive cooling, it has this connection with afforestation, all right? So they do both afforestation and also like try to incorporate it into like passive cooling.
Yeah.
All right, not just in deforested areas, but also in the municipalities. So
yeah,
I think
this is the nature-based solution. That's what you're talking about, right? The nature-based, this is different. The nature-based solutions, they are not financed by a loan that you have to repay over 5 years. The nature-based solutions are loans that are very, very, very special loans that are paid back over 20, 25 years. And then they bet, the bid is on what? The bid is that if we do that, we will have less catastrophes. If we do that, we will have less storms, so we'll have less destruction. It's not the same financial if you look at it, the pure financial, like you, when you go to a bank and you want to buy something, a car, or you want to buy it, you know, it's the nature-based solution. It is something that we are also doing in UNEP. It's not my team, but it's something completely different. It comes from subsidized funding that is given by development banks, that are given by governments. It's not like a purely commercial. What I'm trying to push for, me personally, is I'm trying to push for how can renewable energy technologies, how financially it makes sense for each one of us to buy it on a purely commercial standards. If one day we have to forget about, you know, subsidized costs and subsidized and grants from governments, how can we make renewable technology, how can I prove that it is financially viable on a purely commercial basis? But I agree with you that we do a lot of the nature-based solutions financing. I agree, but it's different. It's you know.
All right, thank you very much, and apologies for coming in late. We just had a little technical support. So, Janaya, thank you very much. My name is Hubert Zan, as rightly introduced. I work with the Ghana Energy Commission as an assistant manager in charge of energy efficiency regulations. I am also the focal person for the Global Cooling Pledge for Ghana, and it's an opportunity to share what we are doing as far as innovative financing is concerned. So what is EcoFridge's goal? What have we decided to do? We realize that predominantly in Ghana, the issue has always been about the upfront cost. How can people get cooling appliances? So we came up with a financial mechanism called the EcoFridge's Go, which is in collaboration with UNEP U4E and then BASE. And the idea was that we would make sure that some opportunities were given. First of all, financial opportunity, the banks. And then we also looked at the vendors. The vendors are the importers who bring in the products. So if you look at the mechanism that we created, what we tried to do was to make sure that we incorporated the vendors, the banks, and then the employees. Every employer receives a salary. And so it is easier to make sure that the employer is able to get an efficient cooling appliance, and then some deduction is made over time. And so the question has always been, how do these banks even vouch for giving out loans? So we spoke with the banks and the vendors to share the profit margin that they usually will make on these cooling appliances. And that is what we have been able to do. So what EcoFridges basically does is that it takes care of the initial upfront costs. A consumer goes to the vendor, he picks in the cooling appliance, the bank pays for it, and then he pays 0% interest for 1 year or 12 months. And that is the beauty of the program. Now, what have we been able to do? We first did a market assessment, financial mechanism, eligibility criteria, because for programs to be able to take place, you need to have a criteria. And that is why I was interested when UK, Graham mentioned that you can actually set a criteria to allow a certain level of products to come into your market. And that is what we did. We set it at R32 refrigerant and then 3-star efficiency level. We also looked at waste management. And again, Japan shared a good example on life cycle refrigerant management. We needed to know how we're going to handle it, and then communication. So basically, these are the items, as I mentioned. We took into consideration efficiency, warranty, and then also setting the safety aspect of the refrigerants. Now, who were some of the partners that we're able to work with? Sun Electronic, who are dealers of Hisense. Derrick, they deal in Whirlpool products. We had Nestra, who are dealers of Carrier air conditioners. And then we also have Bosch products. Took part in the refrigerator and air condition EcoFridges program. Awareness has always been a problem. So the question was, how are we going to create the awareness? We took advantage of various means: flyers, celebrity endorsements,
and also the traditional media, social media, and then TV and radio. And as you can see, we try to make sure that a lot of the consumers were well informed about the program. We also took advantage of live interviews where phone-in sections were made so that consumers could call in and then find out exactly what it was. Now, what did the eco-fridges do? It helped transform the Ghanaian market, because the initial discussion was how many Africans or Ghanaians can afford new, efficient air conditions. But when the program came into being, we realized that people indeed were interested in the technology, but they just didn't have the technology available. So what eco-fridges did was to bring the technology in as number one. It also made provision for people to procure these items and have flexibility with payment, which is 12 months at 0% interest. Now, one aspect, as you can rightly see, is that we're able to introduce about 3,000 sales of refrigerators just within the scope of the program. And in terms of air conditioning, about 2,000 new air conditions were introduced. We also mobilized about 33 million Ghana cedis, and then also direct and indirect reduction in terms of emissions. Now, what were some of the challenges? And I'm sure countries are here to learn about the program and also what were the challenges. One major one was product availability. Like I said, the importers wanted to just sell products. And so to set a criteria that meant that these were going to be efficient ones, the cost will be high. So we needed to make sure that the product was going to be available. And that is why the manufacturers were also engaged and convinced about the possible economies of scale. Then we also looked at communication barriers. We took advantage of social media, traditional media, and made sure that the low-hanging fruits were taken advantage. Please, 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 awareness is very expensive. And so when you rely too much on television and radio, you might end up not doing much because you need to pay a lot. But there are free means like social media, TikTok, now they say it's for the Gen Zs. But you need to target them as well. So it's just about creating content and providing it on TikTok, and also it can fly. Then you have your Facebooks, and then your Instagram, and then X, which we took advantage of. Then one major issue was the prevailing market rates, okay, the loans. In Ghana, to take a loan, you are looking at an interest rate between 25 to 30% interest. And so nobody is motivated to even go for a loan. But this program was able to make sure that that interest was 0% for 12 months. And as I said, the interest in terms of the sales was shared between the vendor and then the banks as well. Then we had limited beneficiaries. Application through WhatsApp and then web page was also a challenge. We created an online platform to make it easier for consumers to apply. But again, people didn't want to put their information online. So it became a difficult issue to be able to do that. And then finally, the take-back scheme. We're able to collect some used products. However, the challenge was, how do we make sure that the life cycle refrigerant management was done professionally? Now, what we want to say is that eco-fridges indeed told us that the price myth can be busted. And I'm saying the price myth can be busted because efficient products are more expensive, but when you have schemes like this in place, then you destroy that price myth. Now, it's interesting to note that out of the figures we saw there, over 90% of the sales was actually cash and not through the loan scheme. And that only told us that it was about making sure that the product was available in the market. And so these are some of the things that we are talking about, and we hope that others can take into consideration. A strong collaboration with the NOU is also very important. The National Ozone Unit, where the refrigerant component under the Montreal Protocol have some requirements to be made. So collaboration is also very necessary, efficiency, energy unit, and then the ozone unit. Then we also had the cultural challenge. A lot of Ghanaians did not want to take part in the stakeholder engagement, or should I even say experience, because nobody wanted to know that he had taken a loan to buy a fridge. And this is cultural in Ghana, because we wanted people to share their experience from this program. However, maybe he just didn't want his parents or somebody else to know that he had taken a loan to buy. So sometimes you have these kind of cultural experience that will come in, and then also political framework. There needs to be that buy-in. For this program to work, it had to be inter-ministerial collaboration between the Environment Ministry and then the Energy Ministry. And so these are some of the things we need to look at. And most importantly, what I like to call system leadership. You need individual champions to pursue this. And for some of us, this project was very dear to us that we had to push it. If we had left it at the top, the ministerial level to decide, again, this is not something they were interested in. But we wanted it to be measurable. So we tried to convince the politician on this potential savings, monetize it, and then tell them how much they were going to contribute. Now, why do we pay attention to cooling in Africa? We are saying that Africa leads in urbanization globally. The effort to strengthen cool chain is also important because we need to also make sure that the produce we are having do not go into waste. A lot of our products go into waste, and then we need to pay attention to energy efficiency, refrigerant, and installation. The installers are the very important stakeholders, and we cannot afford to avoid them. So with all of this said, what I can say is that the Ghana case study of eco-fridges is something that worked very well for us. We are looking forward to expand that scope. And so as we speak, we are working with UNEP, U4E, and UNDP on a project we call the Agora, which is abating greenhouse gas refrigerants, which is going to follow this trend. And most importantly, we are also working with GIZ and EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, on Article 6. These are the opportunities that we can take advantage of, and that is called the green cooling. So please, let's look outside the box. I know Miriam was here earlier to talk about financing, but we need to think outside the box. We are too close to what we are used to, which has to be a loan, which has to be a collateral, but there are a lot of innovative financial mechanisms that can be used. Like I mentioned, eco-fridges, Agora, and now Article 6 is ready to support green cooling. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And
thank you very much, Herbert, for your very interesting presentation. So now I just open the floor to the audience. If you want to ask any questions to the Herbert, since this is a very interesting topic and which can be applicable to other countries as well. So if you want to say any, okay. Granada, please. No, it's okay. So, but Iraq, please then.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. You know, we are here when we listen to your presentation. I thought like we are marketing for refrigerators. I want to say that we are looking for GHG reduction. So I don't see a connection between how you're marketing for this product among us while we are seeking for reduction. And as you said, for financing by Article 6 carbon credit. What I wish to, from you and from others, to have a connection to elevate our aims to have passive cooling or refrigerator and roof cover and solar cell roof cover with what we're working in our aim in reduction of 86% of GHG. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Iraq. And you know, your suggestion actually tells me that there is a lot to be done. Now, if you look at the presentation, a lot of us miss a lot on the potential greenhouse gas emissions that can be saved. These refrigerants contain global warming potentials. And so that is what you will use, for example, in the case of the green cooling. We are looking at leapfrogging to R290. And R290 obviously has a lot of potentials in terms of the greenhouse gas emission savings that can be made. So that is the link that you need to provide. Efficiency, like Leslie rightly mentioned, usually has direct and indirect emissions. In Ghana, most of our power production is through thermal. The thermals are using fossil fuels. And so if you have these cooling appliances, which is reducing energy consumption, then it is going to indirectly reduce the production, and then you can also calculate the emissions. So you need to make a clear distinction, and cooling is doable. So we have done that, and I'm saying that you can create a greenhouse gas emission, tie it to the climate issues, and we have done exactly that through GIZ to work with the carbon markets to be able to provide green cooling for Ghana. So maybe we can share notes on that, how exactly you can take advantage. Passive cooling is good, it's one of them. I always say that let's put all the baskets, bring everything together. Let's not stick to one or two. So you can go for passive cooling, you can go for the renewables, but you can also target the green cooling and have Article 6 sponsor that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. One more question from the Bahamas, please.
Good afternoon. Excellent presentation. I wanted to ask a question as it relates to your challenges, one of your challenge points. And you said there was limited budget, so you use social media. For, I guess, many of us in the room, we understand that social media has a lot of noise. So how did you cut through without paying for Facebook ads or X ads? Can you explain or elaborate?
Right. So thank you very much, Bahamas. And as I said, one important thing we all need to know is that awareness creation is very expensive. And once we have tied that to the expense, it is always because we are looking at the traditional television and radio adverts, where the bill of rates are usually high. Now, social media is a low-hanging fruit, which we can take advantage of. So if you compare how much you will sponsor an advert or a content you have created compared to paying the traditional media, it is relatively cheaper. Number two is that when you pay the traditional television station, perhaps everybody is at work between the hours of 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And if the program is being shown on television, how many of the populace will be watching? But once it's sitting on a social media page and is paid for in a form of sponsorship, anytime you log in, you can have access to it. So you realize that there's a longer retention of your adverts or your content compared to the traditional television. So those are some of the things that we're able to take advantage of and make sure that, there are other ways you can tag agencies, right agencies. And remember that the target was for salaried workers. So also we took advantage of the union groups. Every organization has union, the Trade Union Congress, where their members can have sessions where we come and educate them on the potentials that they can make. So as a salaried worker, you go to the shop, you pick the products. You don't pay for the initial cost. The bank pays the vendor for the initial cost, and then you are deducted every month on a monthly basis for the repayment at 0% interest. And that is the beauty of it. So I always like to say that financial mechanisms is not always about a loan and a collateral. We can think outside the box. Why don't we bring the finance together, the business person together, and there is some profit to be made whilst the two of them can discuss business, and then the consumer is free to make a choice. So thank you very much on that.
I have a question. Again, just one question.
Yes, Lee.
Thanks. Hubert, just a question. I think the It's an excellent example. I've heard from you many times, and I hope we can replicate it to other countries as well. But on the Article 6, do you have any experiences to share yet? Because it's a very new area, and if you have anything further to give on that, I think it could be very interesting to hear.
Yes. So I think Article 6, I mean, GIZ is here, so they can also speak on that, but this is quite new, so you can come in and then I add on to it.
Yes, thank you very much. That's why I put up my flag. Because it is actually a very good example, and thanks for raising it. And what we can do for first interest, share the link of a training we have online. It's a free training where you can learn how to combine cooling and Article 6. So we can add that link into the information for participants. And I would like to offer the idea to you and also to the Cooling Pledge to make a webinar where the example from Ghana can be shared. We also have another project, it's called COOPSA, Cooling Program for Southern Africa, where Eswatini, who's also part of the Cooling Pledge, Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa are also running that approach. And there we have more cases to talk about, and also the difficulties, for example, how to bring the ACs into the country. That is really a big issue, but Article 6 can be actually an accelerator. And maybe this is a good way to come in touch, and maybe also Iraq is interested to share thoughts. And I know also that Grenada is looking into Article 6.4, which is the next stage. So I think there is a lot happening, and to have a webinar where examples are explained and shared and discussed, I think that would be a good start. And maybe we can do some training in the next focal point meeting where we become a bit more concrete. But this is maybe something to talk about. But I would like to have like some sort of webinar. Maybe we can look into it. We already talked it last night, so now we have it on the plate, and I think there's something to offer and to learn. Thank you.
So thank you very much, and Janaya, I think this session has been very entertaining, and I hope to come back again during the MEP session to give you more examples about how we can even go ahead to set the criteria. So Iraq, I'm looking forward for more engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Herbert. So next, I'd like to invite the Maldives for. So let me introduce briefly. Give him a large applause. So next speaker is a Miss Fatmas Usra from Maldives, who works as an international relations officer at the Ministry of Tourism and Environment in the Environmental Management and the Conservation Department, where she is responsible for works related to the multilateral environmental agreements. Her work is focused on advancing the ministry's objectives through global environmental diplomacy, strategic international collaborations, monitoring the implementation of the ratified conventions, and effective resource mobilization. So it's a very vulnerable opportunity to hear about the very geographically unique countries. So happy to welcome Ms. Fatmas over to you.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure the lunch is hitting right now, but I'll try to keep it fun and tell you a little bit about the cooling sector in the Maldives. First of all, to begin with, I would like to tell you a little bit about how the Maldives is. For those who have not heard about Maldives, we are an island state scattered across the Indian Ocean with 1,190 islands and 27 atolls. So We have our islands almost on an average elevation of 1 to 1.5 meters above sea level. Mostly the reason why you keep hearing about how vulnerable we are to the climate impacts and the climate change. So we have approximately 90,000 kilometers squares, only 298 kilometers square, which is dry land, and making it quite difficult to do agricultural activities and have to be dependent on food imports and other sectors also. So among these islands, we have only 187 inhabited islands with a total population of 500,000 people, including the expats. So we are dependent on the tourism sector and fisheries industry, making it really important for us to have a cool environment to host our tourists and also to make sure the food, the fishes and everything reaches to our population across the country with a sustainable cold chain. For us, climate impacts are something that we experience daily. We have been experiencing extreme weather events, whether it's heavy rainfall and flooding, and also the other opposite of it, which is extreme heat. So last year, we were able to record some of the highest temperatures ever in the Maldives, which was warmer to 1 to 2 degrees above the climatological normal. In the northern atolls of the Maldives, Hadal Hanimadu, which is an island, recorded the highest ever maximum temperature of 35.1 degrees Celsius on 2 days, in 24th March and 11th April, so making it really extreme heat. We are experiencing it, and the tourism and fisheries sector keeps on growing. So tourism industry is, depending on tourism industry, we are growing our GDP and everything, and we are to spend a lot of it on fuel expenses. So we have spent 21% of our GDP on the fuel import, amounted 21% of the total imports, and this is 11% of our GDP, which is a very high number. So we have been trying to address these challenges by increasing renewable energy within the country, and our president has pledged to increase the renewables by 33% within the next 3 years. By 2028, we are to reach this. And also, we have been experiencing the heat, and one of the most densely populated cities in the world is our capital, Male City, making that alone has made State Electrical Company report that in 2023, that 40% of the electricity bill of an ordinary household in the capital area, Male City area, is also accounts for the air conditioning and has been spent on cooling itself. As I mentioned earlier, tourism sector continues to grow, and after spending all the hours on the sun, on the sandy beaches, and also swimming, definitely you need to come to a cooler room, which is cool enough to let off the heat that you have experienced throughout the day. So we have hosted, by this year, June 7th, we have hosted 1 million tourists in the Maldives. So by the end of the year, we are to expect 2 million tourists. So if we are to cater to the increase in tourism sector, we need to ensure that our one atoll, one resort concept, and also the guest houses, the liverboards, and all these places are accommodating to the tourism and the guests that we are receiving. And also, in the tourism sector, we have known that the cooling is the most energy-intense operation, and one of the scope exists. There is a significant scope to increase energy efficiency in the resorts, as 60% of energy consumption is due to energy used by the appliances in the buildings. So cooling is one of the most energy-intense operations in the resort. So we must not forget the fisheries industry. our fishermen catch one fish at a time and go on to 1 week-long fishing trips where they sustainably source their fishes and come back to the islands where they will be selling these fishes to. So they also need to make sure that within their boats that they have equipments to make sure that fishes are stored in safe temperature. So that this means we have a growing need for the sustainable cooling industry. So noting these challenges and also with the renewables, and we are trying to increase the energy efficiency. So through the strengthening low carbon energy island strategies, LCEI project, which was funded by the Global Environment Facility, GEF, and was executed by our ministry, with the help of the implementing agency, which was UNEP. We were able to start and introduce the energy efficiency labeling in our country. The Hakatari program provides the consumers with a simple and a clear instruction of the energy saving potentials of the electrical appliances at the point of purchase. This is achieved through the Hakatari label, which is displayed on these appliances and indicates how much it has energy efficiency potential it has. So it also standards the minimum energy performance standards and assigns a star rated 1 to 5 rating there is, and also provides a symbol indication and of the energy saving potential. So approved models of the appliances includes 44 air conditions and 25 refrigerators. Not only that, it also includes washing machines also. And these all appliances are run in all low GWP refrigerants. So when we are talking about cooling, we must not forget one of the most successful multilateral environment agreements, which is the Vienna Convention, the Montreal Protocol. So for Maldives, we have phased out CFCs and ozone depleting substances in 2008, sorry, I'm moving too fast. In 2008, we phased out CFCs, and also Maldives was the first developing countries to successfully complete the phase out of the production and consumption of CFCs in 2020, which was 10 years ahead of the deadline set by Montreal Protocol. So as we are working towards to finalize our Kigali amendment, Kigali implementation plan, so we are looking into increasing natural refrigerants and low WP refrigerants, and also looking into energy efficiency, which we will be doing with our colleagues in Energy Department and the National Ozone Unit. So when we have been talking about the ACs and refrigerators, but we really need to look into passive cooling as well. So we have an increase in urban heat effect. So the increasing concentration of the buildings in the small urban areas and the cities that we have 5 cities. Island heat effect is also there, the limited open spaces and high density development with the heat getting trapped and everything, so meaning that we really need to look for passive cooling initiatives. Also, there is a rising energy use for cooling as the weather patterns, as I mentioned earlier, the extreme heat, and there is a demand for cooling sector. So this is the reason why we really need to look into passive cooling. And we would also like to look into the nature-based solutions, leveraging nature-based solution to reduce the active cooling side of it, whether this includes the green roofs or tree-lined streets, coastal breezeways, and go for the natural ventilation and shading, insulation, and cool buildings. So also, when we talk about passive cooling, I think it opens the topic of working together as sectors. So maybe sometimes when we talk about active cooling and the refrigerants, air conditions, and refrigerators, sometimes people think, oh, this is the work of a National Ozone Unit only. But when we start talking about the passive cooling, we really need to bring in the island councils, atoll councils, the city mayors, and also the planning institutes of the country, including the planning ministry and the construction ministry, tourism, environment, and also the fisheries sector. So we need to really look into, discuss about passive cooling and need to mainstream it so that it can be recognized across sectors. This is a need for the Maldives. So we have been seeing increase of construction, like the need of buildings and flats and these apartments. We have been very centralized to the capital area, so there is an increase in demand of social housing also. So with these, planning is a key, and we need to have these things included, passive cooling to be part of the plannings that we have within the cities and also the outer islands. Then, of course, we will be looking into the challenges that we are facing in adopting passive cooling as a whole. So definitely financing is one of the key challenges that we face, because we are really dependent on donor funds in the terms of cooling, because we do have to spend a lot of our public funds on the climate adaptation and also the mitigation part of it, looking into the coastal protection, and also to ensure that our vulnerable islands are in a safe space to live their everyday life. So we have to spend a lot on those areas. So there's very limited funding even for conservation itself. So we are really dependent on donor funds when it comes to cooling and also the energy efficiency part of it. So the geographical distribution of the islands also is one of the challenges. We really need to know how the situation of the 178 islands, or the islands that people are residing in, also to check the resorts, how these islands are planned out, and to ensure that we really have to go throughout or visit each and every island. So the extreme weathers, the heavy rainfall, the rough seas make it difficult for us to even implement other projects. So passive cooling, it's a new topic. To ensure that we are effectively looking into it, we really need to go to these islands or the atolls in the cities to see how it is there. And also, with the rapidly developing construction industry, we are unable to match to the level of construction that's going on, even with the capital, the Greater Malé area, which is in the capital, and also in the developing islands, where some of the islands, some of the atolls, the atoll capital is the center hub for people to go and look into start living there, because that's where we get the education or the tertiary health facilities and everything is there. So the migration is also there. So we need to try to match up with the growing construction industry. So of course we are within the government and also within the ministry, we have policymakers and the high-level policymakers, the political appointees, and everyone is there. But within the islands, we have the island councils, atoll councils, and also the city mayors and everyone. So to ensure that synergies between everyone across all atolls and also within the central government needs to be there, and also within the energy, climate, and also ozone people. So we need to bring everyone to one table to ensure that this is a known topic for everyone. That is a challenge that we are facing, and that's something we would like to see happen in the future, because with the extreme heat, to match up how increasingly warming it's becoming, so we need to make sure that is happening there. And also capacity building across all sectors, whether it's educating architects into the cooling sector, the builders, even in the policy makers, sometimes everyone might not be aware of what passive cooling is also, and to ensure that this is a topic where everyone is educated. It's not only about the technologies and the science behind it, but to ensure that these people know why we need it. That there is an increase in demand for cooling, and this is something that we need to ensure that everyone across Maldives knows. That's a challenge that, of course, we need to address. And also the scarcity of the land, allocating green spaces is a challenge. If you look into our capital, you'll be able to count the green spaces that you see by 2 hands. So definitely that's an area that we have been trying to address, and the president himself has a very ambitious pledge to plant 5 million trees across the Maldives by 2028. So this is where we are hoping to see more greenery within the islands and also within the cities of Maldives. That will be all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatmas. I just want to take a couple of questions if you have. Please, sorry, I can't see.
Yes, hello, from UNEP here. You were just talking about the energy labeling, and I'm just wondering if the minimum energy performance has been established as well, or you at the moment just develop the label, and in case the maps are not in place, if this is part of your plans.
From what I have learned from my colleagues in energy department and what we have noticed, I think it's the energy labels for now. And they have been trying to broaden the scope of it by introducing it to the new other appliances, not only limiting it to the air conditions, refrigerators, and the washing machines. So that's something that they are really working on, and they are looking for the funding opportunities where we can tap into.
Thank you, and then Bahamas, please.
Yes, to piggyback on UNEP, are the consumers reporting any savings, or are they seeing any savings as it relates to Hakatari labeling?
For now, I think we haven't asked everyone to change to the Hakatari label, but when we have been advising to, of course, the project did conduct awareness sessions within schools, colleges, and also to the public also, and they have one of the most well-established website page within our ministry to give out the information on Hakatari, and also the label is on the appliances when they buy it. So they are requesting and asking everyone to consider these things when they are moving forward when buying new appliances. So when we see within the government institutes also, they have been asking to ensure that we go for the energy efficient ones.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Maha. It was a really intriguing presentation, especially from the unique geographical context. I think that the energy efficiency label could be some way combined with the finance program in the future, I guess. So thank you very much.